Before I even get started good, I just want to say I am well aware that this video could be the least popular one I will ever do. So let me tell you why. It is because we love our vehicles. We love our cars or trucks, SUVs, whatever it is, we absolutely love them. As a matter of fact, we love them more than we love the accumulation of wealth for us and our families. Okay. Now I know those are fighting words. I understand it. I get it. But we can't make the decisions we make collectively regarding the purchase of vehicles, how much money we spend on vehicles. We can't do what we do and then say, well, that's not the main thing. Because the amount of money that we have spent over the last few years, we collectively would have helped us to build a significant nest egg for us and our families, could change our legacy, could set our children up in a much better situation than we were set up in financially. But we love our vehicles. That's it. I mean, what else could explain some of the things we do? You think about this. If you're spending 50% of your gross annual pay on a vehicle, you're not really interested in building wealth. You're not. If you make $60,000 a year and you buy a $30,000 vehicle, you're really not interested in building wealth. You may be more interested in looking wealthy. The decisions we make tell us all we need to know. I mean, if you think about it, this same person making let's use the same number. This same person making $60,000 a year, you go out and get a $1,000 a month car payment. That is insane. That is absolutely insane. But what it says is that it's critically important that we maximizing our spending on things that give the exterior impression that we're really doing well. That's what's critically important. And when you think about it that way, it doesn't make us feel very good, I'm sure. It doesn't make me feel very good when I think about some of the money I've spent on new vehicles. But at a certain point, we have to do something drastic. We need to do something drastic. I've said it before and I will say it again. I believe the purchase, our love affair with nice, shiny, new vehicles is one of the single biggest factors that leads to our less than stellar financial performance. I believe it is one of the biggest single factors. Our love affair with those vehicles that smell so good. I mean, it causes us to do things like trade vehicles every 3 years. It causes us to do things like lease vehicles when you're not getting any kind of business write off from it. Let me put that in there. Leasing it just so you can drive a new vehicle for cheaper payments. I'm guilty of that one. I am guilty of that one. So that's why I've been using the plural pronoun we, because I have been a participant. But as I said, we have to do something drastic at some point, or we will continue to get the same results. I saw something the other day that I want to share with you. These are fairly recent numbers that you might be interested in. Let's see here. This is from NerdWallet. These are recent averages for car payments. This was from fourth quarter of 2024. Average monthly payment on a new car, $742. Average monthly payment on a used vehicle, $525. You can see the interest rates on the new and used vehicles. You can see the loan amounts, 41,000 for a new car, 26,000 for a used car. But this is what I wanted to look at. Look at the loan terms. Just so you know, I know you guys are better at math than I am. 5 years is 60 months. So the average, again, let me stress, average means there's some less and there's some more. This is average. The average loan term is on a new car is 5 years and almost 8 months, almost 6 years. Used car, 67.2 months. I mean, very little difference. So you think about that with what we know about the depreciation of vehicles in year 2 and year 3. So you're buying an asset, which again, I use that word loosely because I really think about an asset is something that brings income, that creates income. But for the sake of this argument, I will continue to say you're buying a depreciating asset, something that's losing value, and you're financing it for almost 7 years. Now, that is not working on your behalf. That is not in your best interest. And I know people get upset sometimes. I've talked to people, trust me. Hey, I'm just a vehicle person, which that's fine. That's fine. But financing a depreciating asset for almost 7 years is not something that a financially astute person would do. It's just not. And again, we have to learn and stop at some point and do something drastic. So I'll tell you, and some of you know my story. Some years ago, when I came to my senses, I decided that it was unwise for me to continue to buy new vehicles and finance them for 4, 5, 6, 7 years. I will tell you, I've never financed a car over 5 years. Okay. So give me credit for that. Never gone beyond 5 years. But at a certain point, I decided, you know what? I'm just going to buy used vehicles and I am going to have the money, save the money up, and so I can buy them cash. And when I leave the lot, I don't have anybody sending me payment books or anything like that. Now I know sometimes there are situations where you can't do that. Okay, there are clearly situations we get in that we can't do that. But that's what I did. And during that period, very rarely did anybody say, "Man, you got the nicest vehicle in the lot." Very rarely did anybody say that. But at that point, that was not my interest. My interest was in not making some finance company wealthy. My interest was in putting that money in my accounts, buying income producing assets in my accounts, and not making someone else wealthy. That was my focus. Again, for me, it was dramatic. It was drastic because all I knew was put your little down payment down, finance it for 5 years. You're just like everybody else. And I decided I didn't like being like everybody else. I didn't like being in a situation where every month I got to send my money to somebody that I don't know with interest, making them wealthy. That was my decision. And I will tell you, I am so grateful that I've done that for years and years. Bought several vehicles for my children, for my wife, for my and literally had car salespeople trying to convince me that financing was better. That's what everybody does. So he was trying to convince me, and my son was there. He'll talk about it to this day. He talks about how I communicated with that salesperson. Um, But that's what we think. We think that's just what's gonna happen. I mean, if you're gonna have a car, that's what's gotta happen. Totally shift in thinking caused me to just make some significant strides by not being caught up in other people's expectations. I've literally been called cheap, frugal, because I didn't have a problem driving an older car. The weird thing is the person who was telling me that, well, never mind. They had probably had a nicer car. Um, but again, that was not my focus. Focus was on purchasing income producing assets for myself. I always say for me and for my family. And I always throw my family in there because everything I do is with them in mind. It's not just about me. If I wanted to spend every nickel I've got on frivolous things to satisfy me today, I could absolutely do that. But, sometimes people make comments about want to change their children's future or want to affect their legacy. But we have to make decisions that line up with what we say. We have to make decisions. Remember in the New Testament, Paul talks about how the things he want to do, he do, and the thing he doesn't want to do, he does those. Uh, in other words, his flesh is warring against his spirit. Remember him talking about that? Well, we have to war against our flesh as well. Because I'm telling you, my flesh would love to go right now, get me a brand new something, something, something. And, but I know I would be, at this point in my life, I would be so dissatisfied because I've got my mind on a bigger goal than that temporary good feeling. My mind, as I've talked about on this channel, is I want to put myself in a situation where when I get ready to retire, when I want to retire, I can retire and not have to give it a second thought. So that's a bigger goal than a temporary pleasure of the new car smell. But this, guys, is insane to finance vehicles for this amount of time. What this probably means is you probably can't afford that car. If you're financing a vehicle for almost 7 months, that probably means you can't afford that car, and that is okay. That will be so wise to recognize that and make decisions based on your ability to pay right now. And so let me say this, even if you had to finance something, why go out and try to finance something that leaves you with a balance of $41,000 if you gotta pay on that loan for almost 7 years? Wouldn't it be better to get something a little less expensive so if you do have to finance, you're not financing quite as much and you can pay it off in 3 years or so? Those are the kind of things that I know are difficult. I know they're difficult because everything in you is saying, "Hey, go get the nicest car I can afford and just go ahead and make the payments." That's what everybody else is doing. Everything within you would be telling you that. And everything in you that's telling you that is not in your best interest. Okay? So again, I know when you're talking about vehicles, people, this video probably won't be watched that much because we love our vehicles. We love them. We absolutely love them. But if you're putting that kind of money in a vehicle every month, whew, man, you're that's a drain on your wealth building ability. That is a drain on your wealth building ability. That wealth building muscle that you have, spending that kind of money on a depreciating asset is not in your best interest. It's not in my best interest. So let's really start to think about the decisions we make and how they line up with our stated goals. How do our decisions line up with our stated goals? What we're saying with our mouth. our actions and our decisions have to line up with that. And it is not always easy. But there's a fact out there that is unquestioned. People who are considered super savers, who are able to leave their children things, half of those people drive used cars. Those people, in a lot of situations, a lot of cases, they drive used cars because they see a car as a way to get from point A to point B and not as some sort of status symbol. That's a fact. So, hope you guys like this video. Hope you still love me. I love you. But let's make better decisions around these vehicles, okay? Talk to you guys soon.